Adolf Hitler's suicide on April 30th, the formal surrender of the Berlin garrison on May 2nd, and Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945. This is the story of the offensive that ended. Within the encircled city, the population's situation was catastrophic before the final assault even began. Berlin had been subjected to sustained Allied air bombardment since 1943. By April 1945, approximately 40,000 civilians had been killed in air raids. Significant portions of the city's housing stock had been destroyed, and the city's infrastructure, water, gas, electricity, transportation, functioned only partially. The city's garrison was a patchwork of units. Regular Wehrmacht formations that had reached front had completed the encirclement of Berlin. The city was surrounded. Additionally, the German Ninth Army, attempting to withdraw westward to avoid Soviet encirclement, was itself encircled in the Halbe Forest, southeast of Berlin, a pocket from which approximately 25,000 soldiers eventually broke through to German operation. The 12th Army, under General Walter Reich, redirected from the Western Front to relieve Berlin from the southwest, faced an impossible task with inadequate forces against the encircling Soviet armies.
On April 23rd, the first Soviet ground forces entered Berlin's outer suburbs. What followed Soviet command as the symbolic objective of the Berlin operation. The Soviet command wanted to raise the red flag over the Reichstag before May 1st, May Day, to provide imagery for the Moscow parade. This deadline imposed tactical pressure that contributed to casualties in the assault on the building. At 6 a.m. on April, or undercounted in summary accounts. Soviet military casualties, according to Krivosheev's archival research, were 81,116 killed and 280,251 wounded or sick, with agreements reached at the Yalta Conference in February 1945. Despite Soviet forces having captured the entire city, Western Allied forces entered their respective occupation sectors in July 1945. The division of Berlin that followed would persist for 44 years, serving as the coalition to pursue a broad offensive, meeting Western forces as far west as possible, rather than consolidating closer to pre-war Soviet borders, directly shaped the post-war territorial settlement in Central Europe. Eisenhower's calculation, the decision not to contest Berlin militarily, Eisenhower's calculation that the city's post-war political disposition made a costly assault strategically wasteful, was rational by the criteria he applied. The subsequent reality of a divided Berlin, a divided Germany, and a divided Europe for nearly half a century suggests that the political costs of ceding the city to Soviet forces alone were perhaps higher than Eisenhower's framework captured. Whether different military dispositions could have produced different political outcomes is a question that cannot be resolved from the documentary record. The Battle of Berlin also illustrates the tension between military necessity and civilian protection that characterizes urban warfare in any period. The decision to assault a city of 2 to 3 million civilians and economic tools across divided cities and divided countries for another 44 years. That history begins where this one ends.